Hello, welcome back to the Speak Your Way to Cash podcast. It is Ashley Kirkwood, and I'm honored to have with us today Suzanne. She's going to explain to us her speaking career, how it has evolved over the years, and how she got her start in this industry. Suzanne, thank you so much for being with us today. Welcome to Speak Your Way to Cash.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about the business that you have currently and how you got started in the speaking industry.
Sure. I have a Inc. 500, fastest growing company in America business. This is our 12th year in business. I have a New York Times bestselling book called The Way You Do Anything is the Way You Do Everything. And about 70 to 80% of our revenue within our business, which has multiple coaching programs, it has digital online products, it has some done-for-you services, it has some agency-like services, comes from some form of speaking, whether that speaking is on a live stage, of course, now a virtual stage, if it's coming from a Facebook Live platform, some form of platform-based speaking. And 12 years ago, I was a secretary in the Broadway theater industry, and I wanted to do something different. I wanted to be my own boss, and I won't bore you in this podcast with the details of how I landed in the coaching world, but landed in the coaching world, and I really didn't know how to do anything but speak. I do have a background in theater, and I was working in the Broadway theater industry, not on the stage side, but on the behind the scenes side. And when I began to launch my business and I got my first few clients, then I said, now what? The only thing I really knew to do was, how can I get in front of 4 people, 8 people, 400 people and share my story, but also share their story and teach, right? And I had been a teacher. I taught in the New York City public school system for a couple of years. And so I brought that teaching experience and the theater experience and working in the Broadway theater experience and did the only thing I knew how to do, which was talk. So the more I talked, the more I made. It's worked out well.
I love that. And you have so many accomplishments, and we've interviewed other folks who are similarly accomplished. What would you say are your 2 biggest accomplishments?
Well, we built a business probably faster than most people in the coaching industry. We built a $1 million business in about 2.5 years. And so speed is something I do really, really well. And I'm able to do speed well because I find that most business owners, especially in the teaching space, the speaking space, the coaching space, the expert space, they are very committed to doing what's hot. And I'm very committed to doing what's not hot. And the reason for that is because I let everybody else spend all of their time on money, on the newest thing, while I stick with tried and true opportunities, one of those, which is speaking. And then we attempt to be late adapters. And if you look at the research for most successful companies, everything from Warby Parker to a million other things, late adapters typically win. So as I let everybody else spin their wheels, I'm really focused on a couple of activities that I know will bring us the most revenue generation. So I think speed is something we do really, really well. And I probably think the other accomplishment, something that we do really well, is that while I train a lot of speakers and coaches, and I do a lot of speaking and coaching, I think we hold events. We used to do 30, 40 events a year. I now have a 4.5-year-old. So we pulled back on some of that. Now that we're virtual, we're doing a lot more events again because it allows me to stay home and be able to do it. But we put on Broadway production level events because that is my background. It's where I came from. And so I think people are experiencing Zoom fatigue right now. I think that people are overwhelmed with the options, and we are really able, we always did this in person and now we're doing it virtually. We're really able to turn a virtual experience into something that you don't notice that you haven't left your computer, you forget to eat, you forget to pee, and you are so connected because we are more focused on entertaining you than educating you, because we know the more you're entertained, the more you will be educated.
Yeah, and that is a gift, being able to do virtual events well. And actually, it's funny that you mentioned you didn't want to, people don't want to leave and they want to stick to the computer, because one of the reviews that we received for Speak Your Way to Cash Live 2020 was that they were taking their computer to the bathroom. And I was like, okay, well, one, we need more breaks, but two, it is a compliment. So I applaud you on that for sure. And so do you recall when you first started your own business, what was the first thing you did that was successful in getting clients?
I sent out something that I call a warm email. I literally, business is not complex. It's a volume game. People try to sell you products and programs and services and potions to, here's the secret pill to business. There's no secret pill to business. The shittiest person, I don't know if I can say on your podcast. I'm sorry. If I did, I apologize. I usually say worse and I usually ask permission, but the person who is worse, the worst person at the service can be the most successful if they will play the volume game. Now that catches up with you at some point. You need to be good at what you good at what you offer. But people try to untangle the complexities of business. It is a simple volume game. So when I came out of the gate, I closed my eyes, I gritted my teeth, I let my embarrassment fly, and I emailed and called every single human I have ever known on the planet, the cousins, the colleagues at work, the people I did theater with in the 3rd grade, high school friends. And I said, I'm doing this thing. Do you know anybody who has this problem? Let me help solve it. And after I did that, then I set up a table in Whole Foods. I went to Whole Foods, total by accident one day. And I said, oh my God, what if I could have a table in Whole Foods? Look how busy this place is. And I went to the manager and I said, I'd like to set up a table and talk about, at that point, I was a life coach, and talk about life coaching. And he said, well, we don't do that. And I said, there's a man in the back giving out chicken sausage samples and you can't do life coaching? Long story short, I think I freaked him out and scared him a little. And he let me set up a table. And so for a year, on Sunday afternoons from 2 to 5 o'clock, I had a table between the organic tomatoes and bananas and Whole Foods. And I talked to people about life coaching. So why am I successful? I ask more people to work with me than whoever's listening to this.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. I love that. I love that story. I love how applicable it is. And I'm curious. So the Whole Foods strategy, how successful was that? And how much of your original success do you attribute to doing that in particular?
I built a 6-figure business from it. I literally got my first couple of clients from a, kind of a small circle of influence, some friends and family. Yes. So I was making $1,000 a month, right? Mm-hmm. And from a couple of speaking gigs and the Whole Foods gig, I built the business to 6 figures, or about $8,000 a month, in about 7 or 8 months. And that's the only things I was doing at that point. I say remember, you don't know. I was in a 60-hour-a-week day job the first 2 years of my business. So I worked a 60-hour-a-week day job. Whole Foods was on Saturdays. The other hustle was in the morning before work, at night after work. And so that Whole Foods booth literally built, if it wasn't 6 figures, let's say it was 80,000, right? It was $75,000 to $80,000 of revenue in a year.
I love that. And so when you first started the business, for those that are following, you were selling what? Was it coaching services specifically, or were there other streams of revenue that you had?
Private coaching.
Private coaching.
And my sessions, and I didn't know this at the time, it was not intentional. Former clients have since told me, I would give them choices from 6 a.m. in the morning till 8 a.m. for coaching sessions, or they could do from about 6:30 p.m. till about 10 p.m. And people thought that was so interesting. There was no day sessions available. They thought I was just so booked up. That's all they could get. Mm-hmm. The truth of the matter was I was in a day job. And I wasn't not being honest about that. I just would send out a link and that's what it was. And years later, people were like, do you know? We were like, oh my God, I want to be as busy as she was. And my point in telling you this is people get all tripped up on stuff. They're like, I can't build my business because I have a day job. I can't build my business because I don't have a bachelor's degree. I can't build my business because my husband has green hair. I can't build my business because I have kids. If you want to do something, you'll find a reason. If you don't want to do something, you'll find an excuse.
Yeah. And I like that you talked about, not only did you have a day job, but you had a demanding day job. And there is a difference, because one of the things that I hear a lot in working with a lot of particularly Black women speakers who are doctors, lawyers, accountants, engineers is like, do you understand that I don't have a 9 to 5? I have a 9 to 10. I have a 9 to 9 p.m. And so I understand that coming from a corporate litigation background, it wasn't ever a 9 to 5. So
No.
I appreciate you saying that and then talking about how you were able to still build your business. So that's incredible. And how did you utilize speaking as a stream of revenue in your business? And when did that come into play?
So it came into play pretty soon but I couldn't do a lot of it because I was in the day job.
Right,
So
right.
I had to book things that were at night or weekends. And I was living in New York City at the time. If you ever tried to get out of New York City in any way, right? So it was also weird. Like if somebody was having a dinner meeting at 6:30 and I was getting off work at 6, if I was lucky, I couldn't get there. So I had to be, I did as many as I could, but I couldn't do a ton of them. And I really just looked at, if 2 or more gathered in a bathroom, I will give a speech. And I spoke everywhere. I think one of a great piece of bad advice that a lot of startup speakers are given is, find your target market, hone in on it, only do those talks. I spoke everywhere. People would say, but this is a group of men plumbers who are just, I'd be like, I got a speech for them. And I would reinvent the wheel every time I gave a talk. Now, is that a long-term strategy? No. But is it a short-term strategy? Yes, because you can't be a good speaker if you're not speaking. And you need to give a lot of bad speeches to poopy audiences to get good. So I would go and give the speech where people were falling asleep in their mashed potatoes. I would give the speech where they said there were going to be 30 people and only 4 people would show up. I would give the speech, which I'm like, oh, this is a little out of my, my target market or my zone of knowledge, but I can bring something to them. And I didn't worry about it being perfect. I worried about it getting done. And the more you speak, the better you get. And it's how I developed my storytelling. It's how I developed my, I played a game with someone once and I said, I will tell you every place the audience will laugh in my talk. And if they don't laugh there, you have to give me $100. If they do laugh there, right, you're giving me and he ended up owing me like $2,000. I know my talk so well. I've spoken to so many people. I can anticipate when an audience is going to breathe. And it requires that of you to get good enough to make enough money for this to be, your life's work. And for me, we have a $6 million company and 80% of that revenue is generated off of speaking. I've done a lot of talks, but people think I've done a lot of big, fancy, great talks. I've done a hell of a lot more tiny, insignificant, free, nobody cared talks than I have big, amazing talks that have generated $1 million for me.
Yeah. And now I want to back up because there are some people watching who are like, okay, how does this fit into my strategy? When you were doing all of those talks, were you doing those talks to get better as a technical speaker, or was it to get in front of enough people so that you could on the back end sell them coaching services? What was the strategy there?
I never spoke anywhere that I couldn't make a free offer, right? So that I wanted to get leads for my coaching. Now, some people would say you can't make an offer. You can always make an offer. People just don't know how to do it in a way that isn't. And now here's my offer, right?
Right.
So yes, so it was both, because I also knew this. I would never get the bigger stages where I could make an offer to 100 people or 300 people until I got really good at making an offer to 20 people. Right. So it was a combination, but everywhere I was going, I was offering some sort of call to action that had a free session. I just wanted to talk. I knew if I could get them on the phone, because as you know, it is a ripple effect.
It is.
People aren't good at closing on the phone, and they're going out and speaking, and they're like, I'm speaking, but I'm talking to people, but I'm not getting any clients. Well, it's all circular, right? So you've got to get great at speaking, making offers from the stage, so you get enough people on the phone that you have enough volume to practice sales so that you get another speaking gig, right? And it just continues to go.
Yeah, definitely. And essentially, what it sounds like is you were excellent at, one, you knew your end game. And I think for a lot of people watching, it's hard in the beginning to figure out what is the end game. And there are so many different speaking business models. So one, you speak on stage, you make an offer, and you make your money in the back of the room, or you invite them to have a call. And so you make your money not before getting on stage, but typically after getting on stage and making an offer. And then you have the speakers who are paid 10 to 20 plus $1,000 to get on the stage. And then you have another business model where you may get paid to get on the stage, but then you also can close 5, 6 plus figure contracts to do consulting work that backs up the principles that are talked about in your speech. Of those business models, which one were you employing and do you employ most often?
Okay, so at this, it's very different what I was doing then and what I do now. Right. So what I did then was I did not have a business model. I did not know what I was doing, but here's what I knew, right? I knew that if you spoke to enough people, you would get lucky.
Yeah.
This is no different than dating, right? If you are desperate to have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, you talk to enough people, some miserable person will take you on a date. Right? I mean, and so in the beginning, I didn't really have a tried and true business model. Obviously, I developed that, but I was speaking, offering a free session, converting them into, actually, I'll tell you, let me get specific. Here's what I was specifically doing back then. I was offering something that I called a gift certificate. I said, you have a gift certificate for 2 sessions with me. And when they said they wanted one at the event, I actually had little boxes with beautiful bows. So it was very tangible. And so they could get that in the first session. I can't remember at the time, but I think it was like 45 minutes, but the second was just 15 minutes. I wasn't good enough at sales yet to feel confident just to go in and close the sale. So I did great coaching for 45 minutes. And then 2 days later, or whatever it was, a week later, that last 15, 20-minute session, that was a sales conversation. So that I felt like I was giving enough value and creating enough trust that then I could convert. So that's what I did in the beginning. And of course, now we use a multitude of models. I sell from the state, I always say I can't afford to be a keynoter. Like I simply cannot afford to be a keynoter. The best of the best keynoters. My best friend in the world is Larry Winget. He's one of the most famous keynoters to have ever walked. $35,000 to $50,000 a keynote is what he gets. If you're not a celebrity, if you're not Bill Clinton, if you're not those are the $100,000 keynoters. Your amazing speakers that are in the National Speaking Association Hall of Fame, they're making $15,000 to $40,000 a talk. And so I joke with him all the time and say, I can't afford to be a keynoter because my average talk brings in $125,000, $128,000.
And that's from making the offer and selling them back in. And that is
no. That's selling from the stage.
Selling from the stage. So you're on the stage and you're like, this is what you can do. If you're interested, meet me in the back table.
So that's me selling a $2,000 program, a $3,000 program. That's the initial average intake is about $125,000. Over the course of 6 months, our average take from a selling from the stage opportunity will be somewhere in the 500 to 1.2 million range.
Yep. That makes perfect sense. And we had, we don't, for those of you who are avid Speak Your Way to Cash podcast listeners, we don't have too many folks on who talk about this business model, but it's very, very profitable because you use speaking to fuel your back end business and you can close without ever having to necessarily do a sales call. Right. So it saves a lot of time. And also you don't have to hire like a whole gang of sales folks to back you up, although you can. Yeah. But yeah, this is great. So I just want to clarify that for people who are like, hey, what's going on here? How do I get to this money? So yeah, I love that. I love that you broke
it's just different model. I kind of say there's the free to free model, the free to fee model, and there is the free to fee model. So free to free is I'm not being paid. I go speak and I make a free offer, right?
Yep.
Second. The free to fee model is I go do a ton of speaking. I get known, I get really good. And then people start asking me to speak and I go, yes, my fee is. That's more the keynote model.
Right.
And then the free to fee model is selling from the stage. So I go speak somewhere and I make a paid offer from the stage.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'm glad that you broke down how you differentiate the two, because what we talk about a lot is you getting the price. I call it a pricey opt-in. So you're paying me $7,500 to $15K to do any number of talks on stage. And then after polling the audience, figuring out what they need, you'll go into probably a $50, $70 plus $1,000 contract where there's some more work on the back end that one of our team members handles. So I love that there's so many different models and so many different ways to make speaking work for you. But I think for most business owners that already have a product or something that can really transform individuals' lives, if you can get great at selling from the stage, it seems to me like it's a quicker way to make a significant amount of money.
In general, speaking in general is fastest path to cash in growing a business across the board, every medium, and so I laugh, right? I laugh at all the digital marketers. We have a $6 million business. I don't have a single funnel running.
Yeah.
Have I had funnels? Do I have funnels? Could I make one really quick? Yes. But speaking as fastest path to cash, selling from the stage is an art form, right? It is a skill set. So most people can't come out of the gate selling from the stage. That's why they should go do a lot of talks where they make a free offer, because the better you get, the easier it will be for you to make an offer. But if you can graduate into making an offer, you are not waiting. I don't like to wait on money.
Yeah.
Right. So I am busy. I am bossy. I am bitchy, and I am expensive. Like it costs a lot of money to feed Suzanne Evans, right? Like I am. So I don't like to wait on my money. So I like to go give a talk. I like to offer something of huge value, awesome service, over deliver, wow people, get my money, go home, and buy my shoes.
Yeah. At the end of the day. No, that makes so much sense. That's awesome. It's really incredible how using your voice, it builds so much trust.
It does.
So if you can do that and be funny and witty, and we actually have a comedian coming in to speak to our Speak Your Way to Cash Academy students. And because one, she's masterful at reading an audience, getting them engaged. But I think if you can be funny and it can come off authentic, and it is authentic to who you are, you're going to just soar in your career.
So Dan Kennedy, he is the grandfather of all marketing and direct response marketing. His partner, Bill, who I actually ended up coaching his daughter for quite a while, and they ran, one of the largest no BS marketing and info marketing companies in the world for years before they sold it. Bill said to me at lunch one day, he said, "Do you know how often an audience needs to laugh for someone to buy from you at the end of a talk?" And it was approximately every 16 to 38 seconds in a talk. So you take that in and listen to this comedian, right? Like take this in as an audience and recognize people get very tripped out about the funny part because they're like, but I'm not naturally funny. And do I have to go on and tell jokes? And, I'm sure your guest will talk about this, but there's so many, you can tell other people's stories, right?
Yeah.
You can tell other people's jokes. There's so many ways to bring humor into talk, self-deprecation. You do not have to be naturally funny. It helps if you are, but you do not have to be naturally funny. There's so many ways to do that, to bring humor to a speech.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that because I think I did not taken all of the improv classes, but I almost feel like that ratio is the same ratio that comedians use when they're gauging whether or not they're doing a great job with their audiences. And it's incredibly difficult.
Yeah, we have a law in my business at Driven Inc. You cannot be a high-end client of ours unless you've gone through 2 to 3 levels of improv. Because sales is nothing more than improv. A sales conversation is an improvisational conversation. And if you're great at improv, not everybody will say yes to you. Not everybody should say yes to you. But you'll have easier conversations with higher conversions.
Way easier. And it's so funny that you say that because my competition in high school was improv. It was improv speaking. Yeah. So we would get these random topics and have 1 minute to create 7 to 10 minute speeches. Yeah. And held the national title, did all of that. And it really does help with sales. And, there's so many skills outside of just the hardcore sales skills that you really should have. Right. It all boils down to how do you connect with people? How do they feel when they talk to you? And are you leading them through a process that they can trust? Or are you so nervous that the value in what you offer can't even come through?
Absolutely. Selling from the stage and also selling One-to-one, it's a dance. And that's why improv is so important. It's like, if somebody switches from the foxtrot to the waltz and you know how to do that, you easily transition. If you don't, you're just stepping on their toes and they want to get off the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's awkward for
Yeah.
both people, like very awkward. So, so yeah, no, I really appreciate that. Now, your business has grown since its inception. At what point, or how have you navigated having employees or contractors? At what point did you start expanding your team, and who did you have to become to do that? Because I have found that to be that is a challenge for a lot of people.
Yeah. A couple of things. Our business grew year after year, and it just grew larger. We had contractors in the beginning. Now we have about, depending on the season and the year and what we're focused on, we have somewhere between 20, 24 full-time employees. I mean, we say full-time employees, those are matching 401k plans and health benefits and all that good stuff. And then we have quite a few contractors and vendors as well. There's two worlds to come from when it comes to growing a team and leadership. Obviously, I can't do this alone, so it's a no-brainer. But I need to be okay with doing it alone. Let me say that again. If everything blew up and I was doing it myself again, people ask me all the time, Suzanne, 12 years in and all this money you've made and a New York Times bestseller, what if you lost it all tomorrow? I said, well, the little sign that I took to Whole Foods, right? The little sign that I took, I framed it years ago and it sat on my office wall. So if everything went to hell, I'd take that sign and I'd go back to Whole Foods again. And so my point is, you have to be humble and you understand that you have to hire for where you're going, right? Not where you are. But the flip side of that is that you have to also recognize, like, I have to know all the elements of this. I don't have to do it all. But so many people, they make $2 and they're like, I want to hire someone to do it all. They will never sustain their success.
No.
Because I recognize that this is my baby. And while I have amazing team members who care very much, it's not their baby, right? It's my baby. And so at the end of the day, I'm always going to care more than they are. I'm always going to do more than they do. And the minute you build up resentment about that, you are a horrible leader and you lose the focus of what you're trying to grow. So obviously team can be a whole, a big, different podcast, 4-day retreat. But as it relates to speakers, I will simply say this, right? Bruno Mars doesn't move his own piano. So somebody's got to get the piano there. Somebody's got to set up the mic. He's got to be really great at what he does and write great music. And he's got to show up and shine. And it would be a lot harder on him if he did it all. But I bet his career started with him carrying his own boombox, right? And doing it himself. So you've got to be able to see both sides of it.
Yeah, definitely. And so I know you mentioned in the beginning you didn't have a business model, but somewhere along your career or your business career, you developed a business model, you solidified some of these elements, you've brought on team members. When did you determine, okay, this is, and how far in were you when you were like, all right, let me slow down. This is the business model. These are my streams of revenue. This is how I'm going to set this up for success. When did you get that guiding light?
It happened towards that first year, and then it just changed, evolved, developed every year, right? I soon after I made 6 figures, developed an ascension model. I didn't only had a couple of offerings. I think people put together way too many offerings too soon. I had like 1 or 2 offerings for the first, to $1 million, actually. I had like 2 offerings until I hit $1 million. And then, of course, as the business scales, the offers need to scale, the strategy needs to scale. But I think in the beginning, you have to learn to sell. It does not matter as much about the business model. It does not matter as much about, this is my 5-year plan. Any highly successful person you will ever meet does not focus on a 5-year plan. right? We don't even know if we want to wear the same color underwear 2 months from now, much less like what is our life going to be like in 5 years. And so in the beginning, you get really good at sales. Once you get really good at sales, you get really clear about your offerings and some structure and some strategy.
Mhm.
Then you get really good at leads, and then you focus on scaling.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. So this has been an amazing conversation. How can people work with you if they're interested in learning to sell from the stage and getting some of these foundational elements in place?
Thank you so much for that. There's a few ways that you can find us. First of all, company is Driven Inc. We do not do tattoos. It is INC. So driveninc.com. You can find us there. But if you'd like to get in our free community, we have a Facebook community where I do lives every week. Like right now, I just finished a challenge actually today that it's around speaking and business growth, all of that. That is drivenentrepreneurs.com. So you can go to, join drivenentrepreneurs.com. Join drivenentrepreneurs.com. It's free. You can jump in. You can get tons of stuff from us that way. We're always delivering free courses, free programs, free 3-day events, 5-day events. But that would be the best place to find us. If you're interested in booking me to speak at your event or for selling from the stage spot, or we buy sponsorships. I mean, that could be a whole different conversation we have. I tell my people to buy your way onto stages. When you ask me how I went quickly, I bought a lot of stages. I bought my way onto stages, but you can go to booksuzanne.com, but you can find everything you need to about us at driveninc.com. And we love hearing from folks. So reach out and let us know that you heard us on Ashley's podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do reach out, join the Facebook community. I love Facebook groups, especially those that are very active. So those are all phenomenal resources. And because you mentioned it, I just have to ask.
Sure.
Buying your way onto stages. How did you identify events that were great opportunities versus those that probably weren't?
Well, now I know. I didn't know then, to be honest. So you kind of have to have some trial and error. But just a really quick story, the first stage I ever bought was a $50,000 purchase. $50,000 stage opportunity. And I was still in that day job and I had saved $40,000 to leave the day job. And I was like, this opportunity is $50,000. It's all I have to my name. Plus I don't even have the other 10, right? I'm going to have to hustle and make it up. And I bought that stage opportunity. And anyway, it's a long story, but I was there. My wife looked at me because there were 3 other people who bought it, who basically sold almost nothing from their spot. And she looked at me and she said, "You have ruined us." She's like, "This is all we have. We've maxed every credit card. You've ruined us and you've done this." And I heard this somewhere, in a seminar I went to, and I didn't know what else to say because I wanted to burst out into tears is what I really wanted to do. I looked at her, I said, "There are no non-selling stages, only non-selling speakers." And then I took the stage. I did not believe that, but I said it to shut her up. And we closed from that event. I sold a $3,500 program and we sold about 25 units of it or something. So I made about $80,000 in that moment. So made my revenue back plus the 30,000. And then my 3-day event, my very first 3-day event was about 6 months after that. And we offered a ticket to those people that came. And from those 30 sales, 15 of them bought a $27,000 package from us. And so over the course of a 3-year time frame, we tracked it. And from that $50,000 investment, we did about $2.4 million.
That is amazing.
So we love to buy stages. It's our favorite way to operate. You know why? It's clean, right? Let me pay you for the opportunity to get in front of your people. You make money. It's my job to perform. It's your job to put people in the room. It's my job to perform. I take my money. I go home. You take your money. You go home. And we are all happy.
Yep. I love that. I love that you were able to shed light into that for sure. No, this has been incredible. I really appreciate your time. And remind us one more time which website they should be going to. I know I have driveninc.com, but you also mentioned the area where
if you want to join our free community, which is just awesome content and opportunity, you can go to joindrivenentrepreneurs.com. So it's joindrivenentrepreneurs.com.
Awesome. And I'll be sure to link to everything in the podcast that you all get all that great information. But thank you so much, Suzanne Evans. I appreciate your time. I know you're very busy, but this has been an incredible conversation. And I hope that everyone in the Speak Your Way to Cash community reaches out. For those of you who are joining us, you're in the community, you know that we're gearing up for our annual Speak Your Way to Cash Live 2021. So I cannot wait to see all of you there virtually. And so it's going to be an incredible experience. So if you're looking for information on that, just go to ashleynicolekirkwood.com/SYWTC Live 2021. And I'll be sure to link to that as well. But thank you guys again for listening to the Speak Your Way to Cash podcast. I will be talking to you all soon.